By now, I'm sure that most NBA fans are aware of Kai Jones and how he's been slowly tearing his NBA dreams to pieces, one live at a time. First appearing on live with many people assuming he was off the perky, then going on to call out multiple teammates over Twitter, and even tweeting out that he could beat LeBron in a one-on-one. And just yesterday, it was announced by Shams Charania that the team was going to keep Kai Jones away indefinitely, with no timetable for his return. But of course, this is just the latest in a string of controversies that have followed the team around for quite a few years now. The first major controversy to the team was the Miles Bridges charges, in which he pled to no contest, which resulted in him being sentenced to 3 years of probation and 100 hours of community service. The league also handed down a 30-game suspension in April of this year, in which they already consider him to have served 20 games of somehow, even though he wasn't signed to a roster last season. But anyways, he'll only have to serve out 10 of those games at the beginning of the 2023-24 season. During the offseason that Miles Bridges was charged, he was coming off a breakout year, as everyone knows, averaging 27-4 while playing 80 games during the 2021-22 season, and was expected to sign a pretty massive extension with the Hornets. But due to his decision making, he's only signed a $7.9 million qualifying offer with the Hornets for this upcoming season. Only time will tell if he's able to make a return to his former self and give that same production that would earn him that max extension. I mean, most former players charged with domestic violence like Jason Kidd, Lance Stevenson, and Matt Barnes all continued their careers with little setbacks, but none of them were dragged through the mud in the same fashion that Miles Bridges was. Now, after the Miles Bridges story was released to the press, I'm sure that the Hornets front office were a little leery of its young team getting into any more trouble, so I'm sure that they were a little less than pleased when their rookie James Bouknight was arrested on DWI charges only 2 days before the Hornets' first game of the 2022-23 season. He was able to avoid a suspension from the team or any punishments from the league, which isn't really the problem here. It's more the fact that when reporters asked Coach Steve Clifford about it, his response was more or less, "This is the NBA, this stuff is gonna happen, what can you do about it? Just be glad it wasn't worse." Which really shows you the lack of leadership not only in the locker room but amongst the entire coaching staff as well. With the situation getting so bad that the only quote vet on the team, Gordon Hayward, was pushed so hard that it resulted in his wife taking to Instagram to complain about the lack of care within the organization that pretty much forced Gordon to play with a visibly injured shoulder. Despite the fact that the team was far from being competitive this season anyways, being 6-14 at the time Gordon got injured. Now, Hayward sat out for the next few games before returning and getting injured again, but the team went on to end up finishing the season going 27-55, which was good enough for the second pick in this past draft, where of course they selected Brandon Miller over Scoot Henderson, making it pretty clear that they're very comfortable with LaMelo staying and being the franchise point guard, despite LaMelo's most recent comments suggesting that he doesn't know where the future will take him if the Hornets don't start to win some games. And not to mention the fact that Brandon Miller does come with his own set of baggage, which is something that Malika Andrews is all too happy to bring up, so we'll leave that to her, as I'm sure that everyone has heard about Brandon Miller's involvement in the murder case. But just know that he was never actually charged, but it is a known fact that he was involved in delivering the gun used in the murder. But before even bringing in Brandon Miller, owner and GOAT Michael Jordan had seen enough and sold off a very large share of his ownership of the franchise. And again, this is all without even mentioning all of LaMelo's issues and PJ Washington's baby mama damn near extorting him. So at this point, it's getting pretty hard to see how they're even gonna get out of this mess.
While the dumpster fire is burning bright over in Charlotte, it's not fully impossible to rally this roster back to where people thought they should be. It's just gonna be tough. The thing that all of the factors here depend on is, will LaMelo Ball pan out to be a superstar like he's on track to be? Because let me tell you, it's a lot easier to appear to have a functioning franchise when you have a superstar in the making doing the heavy lifting. While everyone knows LaMelo Ball has the potential to grow into a superstar, he's suffered a number of unlucky injuries in the NBA that have held back his development until now, and may have had his bones ground into dust by the LeVar Ball child labor workout routine. This makes waiting for LaMelo to develop into a truly top-level player a huge gamble. Something that makes this an even bigger gamble is, as mentioned earlier, LaMelo Ball is probably not going to be one of those loyalty guys when it comes to Charlotte. Unless he's moderately happy with the direction of the franchise in the future, he may just force a trade like we've been seeing with most of the league these days. What would keep LaMelo Ball happy, you ask? Well, if Miles Bridges comes back 100% and proves that he's actually changed, that would be a big help. This one is actually pretty likely, as we have no reason to believe that Miles Bridges is just some crazed maniac who wants to beat on people. He's already been punished, and has likely done some self-reflecting. His production may dip as he gets used to NBA level play again, but he should return to form given a few weeks of games, especially given that he is still young at around 25 and a half. Of course, it is possible that he comes back a Ben Simmons level train wreck on and off the court, but as mentioned earlier, a number of players have come back from somewhat similar circumstances and continued their careers just fine. So let's say we now have LaMelo and Miles chilling on the Hornets with most things for them going right. No incidents, no injuries, just pure chemistry development night in, night out. Well, this probably isn't enough to truly save the franchise on its own. The top-down apathy displayed by this franchise has to be dealt with by the new owners. The players seem to just be balling and enjoying the rich life rather than buying into any greater than all of us mission. And at this point, with the amount of insane stories coming out of Charlotte, it almost seems encouraged to be a wild card. If someone on the Miami Heat, for example, got perked up and started having a month-long manic episode, it's almost guaranteed that Spo would be personally throwing his ass out the door on day one. But even if the team all bought into the mission, a huge problem arises when you think about the Hornets drafting Brandon Miller this year. While this could change and he could blossom into a great player, Charlotte fans have so far not been satisfied with the second pick of the draft. Let's also not forget that Brandon Miller was involved in a literal murder case, just adding to the clown fiesta that is the Charlotte Hornets off the court. The sad reality is that without a bit of luck, this franchise may just be doomed. There's a lot of problems that this team has to deal with to get back on track, both on and off the court. Without the most respected man in the NBA, Michael Jordan, holding the team together anymore from a brand standpoint, we could even see the Hornets relocating to a more opportunistic spot in the future. While this is unlikely for the very near future, I don't think anyone predicted the Sonics relocating, and the Hornets are honestly looking like they're in a lot deeper of a hole than the Sonics ever were. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like, or maybe even consider subscribing. It would mean a lot to us, and we'll see you next week.